Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well with probably anything in your life which is unrelated to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Yep, it is therapy once again on this show. If you're listening to us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And guys, it just feels like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? We are back here. We are back providing you with instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur being beaten by Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 in the Premier League. So much to talk about, so much to dissect right now in relation to what is going on at Tottenham. Is there a direction of the football club? What is the plan for the future? Well, I'm pleased to say, trying to give us some therapy. The panellists tonight will hopefully try and give you their sense of direction of what is happening. We're joined by the brilliant Richard Cracknell, superb host, broadcaster back on Marcus Buckland, and Spurs YouTuber, podcaster Patrick Tyrant, who are going to give you their views, as I said, on what they feel is happening in and around Tottenham right now. A bit of housekeeping before we do start the show. You will know this by now, and by the time you probably see this, you'll be wanting to drink a lot of it tonight. We're delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That is the Beavertown, of course, bang opposite our South Stand. You can always grab a pint before and after the Beavertown Corner Pin games, beforehand, pre-hand. We're hoping to be bringing you some kind of a live show. I know right now that probably feels like the last thing you want, given the nature of where Spurs' season is going. But for all Beavertown-related equipment, beer, accessories, please go to beavertownbrewery.co.uk. Right, housekeeping firmly out of the way. Cracks, I'm going to have to open up with you. Now, let's just make it clear, you're over here in the UK at the moment, not in Lanzarote, so that's probably why you're smiling even less than what you are right now. But Crack, Spurs' mini revival, it lasted a few weeks, and then quite literally we've had to endure a shambolic last few days out of the FA Cup. And really, we've had two concerning team selections, two games in which Spurs haven't scored, two successive defeats. In relation to today's game against Wolves, we did dominate large parts of the first half. We did it at the bar a couple of times, but no killer instinct. And as that game went on, Wolves seized an opportunity. They made proactive changes, and they were rewarded for those changes and got themselves into the lead. And quite frankly, Cracks, I think Spurs could have been playing until midnight tonight. I don't ever feel Spurs would have ever got back into that game. And when you consider that we rested players... And you can see, Cracks, we rested players and were bumped off the FA Cup for this. Was it really worth it, Cracks?
No, not at all. Evening, everybody, and thanks for having me back on again, Rick. And again, I went to Sheffield the other night. Fantastic turnout, brilliant from our fans. And again, we get served up that, I'm lucky, I don't work full time anymore, so I've not got to take any annual leave, etc. But people up there taking 2 days annual leave, spent 250, 300 quid with a bit of beer money and a hotel and travel and tickets and everything, and you get offered up that, it's just. And again today at Wolves, off everybody goes again in the hope, and you get offered that again. But all of these performances, and especially Wednesday, because that sort of offered us a genuine chance of getting something from this season. I know people talk about the top four, but personally, Rick, I can only speak for myself. I don't care, I'll finish mid-table and take an FA Cup. But, the realities of that as well, though, Rick, is that you win the FA Cup and you win 2-3 million quid for it. You might get 2 or 3 million quid in extra revenue sales from shirts and things like that. Get fourth place. You're in the Champions League. It's 40 million quid, 40 million pounds. And... that's the sad realities of it. So I don't know. I've not bought into any of this PR spin that's been put out this week that, the chairman's furious that we didn't give the cup a good go. He seems so furious that he's flown out to Bahrain this weekend to be at the Formula One and not up at Molineux and gone up there as sort of team Tottenham to try and drive us forward. So I don't know. I think everything that goes on at the moment at the club is just indicative of the whole club's kind of being run at the moment. It's rudderless, it's captainless, it's listless. There's no chairman now. Today he's off playing Mario Kart somewhere. The manager's not back yet. The supply teacher's there, and have a terribly run school, and you get unruly pupils. It's nothing there at the moment, nothing to cling on to. And speaking to friends, saying I'm just not angry anymore, Rick. I just don't feel anything. The defeat comes and you just go, well, yeah, we was all going, hit the bar a couple of times, 75 to 85 minutes, they'll pop up with one, job done. It's Burnley away last season, Ben Mee on 81 minutes, Traore today on 81 minutes, Wednesday night on 78 minutes. It's just a pattern. So it's just, but it doesn't hurt anymore, Rick. That's the thing. It just doesn't hurt anymore. And football shouldn't be that, should it? You should feel something. I don't know, if you offered me at the moment somebody starting Coys FC playing at Haringey Borough, and would you like to come and watch this? And we'll get Harry Redknapp, who I was with last night, who's still sharp as a tack, by the way. 76 he was on Thursday, and he'd still come back and manage if the job was right. When do you know what I mean? And a few players, I'd probably go over there and I'd leave them to their entertainment complex with Beyonce driving around in Mario Karts under the NFL pitch or whatever it is else they want to do there, just to feel something that feels like football again, and supporting a club. Because at the moment, it just doesn't feel like that. It's just no feeling of what I used to feel and what it felt like to be behind something in football. And these performances are all indicative of just how the club's seen in the position they're in at the moment. It's sad, Rick. It is really quite sad.
It is. I mean, Marcus, to bring you in, as Cracks has alluded to there, we're approaching the business end of the season. And in a week where Spurs have lost to Sheffield United and Wolves, the manager is in Italy. The chairman is in Bahrain. The club have now lost back-to-back games for the fifth time this season. And in the correlation of that game today, we just simply ran out of steam in that second halves, and Wolves made plenty of changes that game wore on and were rewarded for changing the game. And when you also add into the context that if any of Newcastle, Liverpool, Brighton win their next game in hand, they overtake Spurs anyway in terms of that top four. So give me your thoughts on that game today, Marcus, and where we just currently find ourselves as a football club, if you possibly can put it into words.
Well, I shall try to without getting everybody too depressed, because I know how we're all feeling at the moment. I feel as depressed as everybody else. I'm going to try and spin it a little bit, which is going very much against how I've been talking all week. But I'll come to that in a moment with an interesting set of stats. And also just the reminder that a week in football can be a very, very long time. And if we just go back to last weekend, we've beaten Chelsea comfortably. And that having beaten West Ham and Manchester City at home. And we were all getting a little bit optimistic again. And in a way, that's a bad thing, because I've seen all the messages and I fully understand and endorse what people are saying tonight, particularly about the inflexibility regarding the tactics. And that's why I've had enough of Antonio Conte. I mean, I love the guy and I love his passion, but I cannot understand how such a successful manager could be so inflexible and stick to the same formula when patently you haven't got players good enough to make it work. The substitutions are, well, they're moronic. Nothing happens before about the 75th minute. And then invariably, I have to say, I think they're the wrong substitutions. There is a stubborn part of me, Ricky, that really does not want to see us finish fourth at the end of this season. Because if we do, Daniel Levy and the hierarchy will say, well, this has been another very good season. We're in the Champions League again, and this will go on and on and on. And if you do look back over the past decade or so, we've had a very good average finish. I think it's 4.5. So invariably we get in the Champions League or we get into Europe. And that justifies the way the club is being run. Because I think the hierarchy have been left behind. We as Spurs fans, we loved it when we first got into the Champions League. It was really exciting. But we've been doing that for a long time now. And as exciting as it still is, and Wednesday night we'll put everything to one side and cheer the team on against AC Milan. I totally agree with what Cracks said. And I'd rather, in a way, we didn't even qualify for any European competition at the end of this season. Make the club sit back and think, hang on a minute, are we doing this right? And listen to the fans. I wish we could do a census of 200,000 Spurs fans and find out of that percentage, how many of them are happy to keep finishing in the top four? How many of them would happily give up a top four place if it meant going to Wembley in February or May or June, as it is this year for the FA Cup final, and actually winning some silverware? Because one trophy in 20 whatever number of years it is just depressing, I'm afraid. And I think it's a reflection of the way the club is run and the mentality. And I still think that if we finish fourth at the end of this season, absolutely nothing will change.
It's John, Marcus, I've got to say, it's very, very hard to disagree with a lot of what you've said there. I really, really am. And again, a lot of people, again, reflecting your feelings there, most certainly in the comments. Again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support already on Last Word on Spurs. Already about 700 to 800 of you here tuning in, watching us live on a Saturday night. Thank you ever so much for giving up your time as well as these wonderful guests that we've got on here. Pat, just to bring you in, Wolves, they changed that formation to get on top in that second half. And in response, Spurs, being honest, they changed absolutely nothing. They replaced their most attacking defender at 0-0. And I'm going to be honest, I thought they left all their subs far, far too late. And yet again, refused to take off Son for Danjuma. And it baffles me how we hijacked this move from Everton and this guy has scored against Preston and since then has not got a look in. It just absolutely baffles me. And on top of that today, Spurs could have gone 7 points clear of Newcastle, 9 ahead of Liverpool, but lose a game they rested players for midweek. So what a wonderful decision that now looks like to rest the players for the FA Cup against Sheffield United. I mean, I'm still not over that. I'm sure you aren't either, Pat. Just give me how you're feeling right now and just the mood that you feel in reflection to Spurs and what they're doing to us at the moment.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on what time you're watching this and wherever you're watching it. Oh, man, thank you for tuning in because, to be fair, I said to Vicky, I almost felt like pulling a sickie. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but it's so bad in terms of, I absolutely get battered. I support Spurs. I love Spurs. I'm on so many different podcasts with my chest out, really repping this team. And right now, I can't back this anymore. I don't back Daniel Levy. I've been Daniel Levy out since 14, 15, 16, way before the current wave and trend of people who are seeing this merry-go-round and this rinse and repeat. And it's just, I can't, yeah, man, it's crazy. Like today, I actually thought, like, do I even renew my season ticket next year? Like, I'm fuming. I know Cracker said he's not even angry anymore. I know, Ricky, you said that as well. Like, you don't know what to feel. But I'm fuming. I'm so pissed off because after that shambolic loss against Sheffield United, who are obviously, they're a decent championship team. They're second in the league. They're going for automatic promotion, but there's no way we should be losing to them. And then you want to see some sort of bounce back. You want to see some sort of accountability for that shambolic performance. And today, no one looked like they actually cared. In the first half, yes, we were actually really good. We took the game to them. Sonny was unlucky hitting the post. Pedro Porro was unlucky hitting the post. We looked like we was in total control. But the difference is a proactive and reactive manager. He made changes. He saw what was going on and he reacted to it. And fair play to them. Like, I mean, at one point, it almost came back and bit him in the arse because Max Kilman went down and they was like, oh, they've already made 5 changes. Will he be able to, will they be able to carry on? But he did. And 77th minute, we make the first sub. Again, it was just literally, it's like he's just got a notebook and 77th minute, make a sub. 83rd minute, make a sub. There's no actual in-game management. I could have done a better job on that touchline today. Honestly, it was awful. And then, it's just, it's the same shit. And then afterwards, Kane comes out and says the same, and I love how he came to bits. But even right now, I'm like, I don't even want to see your face. I'm that pissed off with the whole team. It's just the same old shit. And to be fair, I wouldn't care if Kane goes, Son goes, all of them. I don't actually care no more. I want, and the reason why today I even wore this shirt, because I didn't even want to wear no Spurs merchandise, but I thought, you know what, let me actually go back to times when I actually enjoyed watching Tottenham, when there was actually something to look forward to, when we actually loved what we were doing and where we were going. And then Marcus even said it back then when we started qualifying for Champions League, which was in this era. It was exciting. We was a team on the up. Our trajectory was there. We were finishing second, third, fourth, and it looked like we was going places. But now finishing fourth, what does it actually mean? Because we finished fourth, and like they said, let's spin it. Oh, it's a successful season. You know, we finished fourth above Chelsea, Liverpool, all of this crap. But the reality is it means nothing because we don't back the team. We don't back the manager. We don't invest. The fact that Eric Dyer and Ben Davies are starting in big games week in and week out, these guys are not good enough to be backups on any of the other top 6 or top 7 teams. And every time we get knocked out of a cup competition, if you look through the team sheet, it's Ben Davies, Davinson Sanchez, and Eric Dyer who are part of that back 4, back 5. The same today. Lenglet, a crap defender. He's like the 5th choice at Barcelona. He gave the ball away so many times for no reason. Ben Davies as well, always giving the ball away. Højbjerg was awful today as well, kept getting caught on the ball. And then, you know, we were just sleepwalking into a 0-0. And obviously, you know, they were quite fortunate with their goal. But if we're being real, they deserved it. They deserved it because the manager was actually brave and made changes. They deserved it because they actually attacked us. They played on the front foot and they thought, you know what, let's go for it and see what happens. And to be fair, going back to your point, I'm fuming, I'm pissed off. I was excited going into this week. You know, we was in the FA Cup. And if you look at the draw in terms of the teams left, we could have had a right go at that. And then, you know, one goal deficit against AC Milan, something that we all should be behind. But now I'm just like, what is the point? We probably won't win anyway. And even if we do, what difference does it really make long term? So, yeah, I'm fuming, man. I'm absolutely livid right now.
Correct. You know, the thing is, and Pat kind of alluded to it there, we were actually fine in the first half. But again, as we just have said in this opening, 20 minutes, that when it wasn't working in the second half, there's no clear, concise plan B. And also, whenever we're away from home and a team raises their game, we always seem to fail to raise ours. And that is the worry, isn't it? You know, whatever you're seeing on the pitch, whatever you want to apportion at the blame, whether it's at Conte's door, Levy's door, the player's door, ultimately, in football, you have to show a flexibility. You have to show that in any game when things aren't going right to change it. And we are failing to do that, Cracks. Failing to do it right now.
Yeah, I mean, that aspect of that isn't you know, the board's fault. There's an argument that maybe there's not the players to bring on to be able to change it, but today there was some options there. You know, there has been some players bought that could make a difference. You know, you can argue about there being better players with the money that's in the club, but you are where you are. You can't buy a player at half time, you know, that's world class to bring on for the second half. So that aspect of the club is they have to do better, this management team. And I mean, I think we're at a point, Rick, where it's quite obvious that Antonio, although apparently coming back on Monday, isn't going to be around much longer. He's not going to extend. I mean, you know, it's just putting off the inevitable, isn't it? And the players will know that. We know that on the stands. The players know that. And you kind of think to yourself, well, maybe get that part of it done then. If he's not going to extend, it's 12, 13 games still to go. Get him gone. But again, it comes down to finances, Rick. We got rid of Mourinho 3-4 days before a cup final because had he have won it, we'd have had to have given him 3 or 4 million quid or however much it was as a bonus. But I mean, if we'd have won the cup, the feel-good factor from it would have covered that anyway, and we would have had a cup. I just don't. And 3 or 4 million quid giving it to him as a bonus doesn't even touch the sides. It's like running a business at our level, and somebody says, "Well, spend 3 or 4 quid, and all your customers will be really happy." You just do it, and that's all £3 or £4 million is to them in the big scheme of things. It's like 3 or 4 quid, like £3 or £4 to you or I. So, you know, but within the game today, yeah, not enough, really not enough. But that's because you've got Stellini there and Ryan Mason now, and you've just not got that regular voice that the players have bought into, that's, you know, been doing bits for a while. It's just a hodgepodge mess, isn't it? Like that's no pun, by the way, hodgepodge mess, like just the potch part of it. I don't know. It's just I think it's just like it's just treading water now, isn't it? Until the end of the season, and you know, our dear friend Andy joined us in the comments, and he said, "Get fourth," and it just prolongs the problem, doesn't it? You know, it's like just to get in it again, just for getting in it. We're not going to win it, and we used to give that mob down the road an whole heap of stick about that. Oh, you're just interested in qualifying to get into a competition, and then want to try and qualify again. Like, you know, I'm not interested in that. I want to win stuff. I want to see us lift trophies. This is what we get into this for. This is what I go around the country and speak to these players about. You know, as I said to you, I've done a night last night with Harry Redknapp and spoke to him about winning the FA Cup in 2008 with Portsmouth. And, you know, he was utterly proud of that achievement, a real good achievement, you know, on his CV and that. He's come out of the game having a great career in the game. And but there it is, the FA Cup. He got us to like the Champions League, qualifying for it. But you could see that the FA Cup win, like actually having that on his CV, meant more to him than getting a team like Tottenham into the European elite competition for the first time since 1962. It means stuff to football people. If you're a football person, you get into it for the trophies, not for the checks and just getting into some you know, competition. It's a nonsense. But yeah, at the moment, Rick, that there's so much more that could be done in game. We got taken to the cleaners second half. They saw what was going wrong. They made changes. They took, as Patrick said, they took a real chance. They've done all 5 substitutions, and Kilman went down. And I thought, oh blimey, they're in trouble here. But you know, fortune favours the brave, doesn't it? And yeah, so that's the tale of the game. That's where we are, and that's where they are.
Cracks, one straight question to you before I bring Marcus back in. If you're Daniel Levy, do you now, I mean, you said that, I think, off air, and I'll let you say this on air, what you said about the query about sacking Conte. If you are now, in the brutal reality of football, we know the man has been obviously off ill, and that's the reason why he isn't here at the moment managing Spurs. Do you part ways right now while Spurs have still got an opportunity of qualifying for the Champions League, and you look to bring an immediate face in come Wednesday, or do you think that's going to be near impossible and it's not worth our time to do right now?
Yeah, as I've said to you, personally, I would. It's all over. But you have to think of the optics of it and how that will be spun in the press. Man comes back from operation because, you know, and he had to take some more time out to be sick, comes back into work and gets sacked. So, but that's what it is, you know. It's the brave new world that we live in, that has its good points and its bad points. That's one of those people that go, oh, you've flown him all the way back from Italy, like, you know, just barely over an operation, and sacked him, like, and that would be the optics of it. Personally, I think football's a horrible game. It's ruthless, like, you know, it's a beautiful game, but it's a ruthless, horrible game. So I'd get rid of him and just take the flak, to be honest. But you know, I'm not Daniel, thankfully.
Ricky, can I ask any of you guys a question? Does Conte look like he wants to be here? Does Conte look like he actually values the club?
No.
So yeah, so get him.
And he hasn't for a while, has he?
No,
he hasn't for a while.
Yeah,
but
look, go on, Marcus.
Well, I was going to say I agree with what you said there, but I don't see the value of sacking Conte at this particular period in the season. Because we all think that Poch is waiting in the wings, and fine. I think he'd wait in the wings until the summer if he knows, like the rest of us, that Conte is going to go in the summer. I just think that, like him or now be very frustrated by Antonio Conte and his extraordinary refusal to change anything. He did get us a top 4 place somewhat against the odds at the back end of last season. And I know I said a few moments ago, there's a part of me that doesn't want to get into the top 4 again, but realistically, of course, we do. And I still, and this is the trouble, of course, you forgive everything. I mean, the number of people I've seen, and I'm like on Twitter tonight going, that's it, I'm done with Spurs. Yeah, you're done till Wednesday. You'll be there. You'll be there for the Forest game. We've all said it a million times, and the club know that. We are. I saw that brilliant thing on Instagram this week about Ward and Levy and Harry Kane. I mean, we are all prisoners of Tottenham, and we can all say we've had enough, but you can't escape. It's like the Hotel California. There is no escape. Okay, so we'll be back. So we somehow, I still think Conte has more chance of getting us a top 4 finish if we stay with him until the end of the season.
Marcus, I have to come back to you on that. You was here on those last few days of Nuno Espirito Santo being the Spurs head coach. Do you not feel this has got similar feelings right now to that, in your opinion, or not?
Well, if you base it on the way we're all feeling this evening, yes. But then I'll go back to the point I made a few moments ago, that if you go back to last Sunday, we'd just beaten Chelsea. The week before, we'd beaten West Ham. A couple of weeks before that, we'd beaten Manchester City. There was suddenly fresh hope again. And I just sensed that were we to turn things around against AC Milan, which I can see us doing, I'm not saying we will, but we're definitely capable of beating them by more than 1-0. And then we go and put 3 past Nottingham Forest next weekend. Everyone's going to start going, oh, well, we're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. We've maybe got a half-decent draw, and we're still looking pretty good for 4th place. So I don't think the situation is as desperate as it was with Nuno. But it's obviously at this moment where emotions run so high, it dismal.
It does. I mean, you can see this is primarily for our YouTube viewers rather than audio listeners. The fact that me mentioning Nuno's name means we've lost Crackers now, so we will try and bring Crackers back. The name of Nuno still scars him, and we will try and bring him back if we can possibly find him wherever he's gone. Pat, I do just want to bring in Stellini's comments before we do go for our first break of the show. So Stellini was talking after the game where he said, I think the performance was good. Very worrying, particularly in the first half when we controlled the game in every aspect. We had some chances to score. We were not so nasty in the way to score. When you have a chance like this, you have to kill the game. The game was under control, but in the second half, we struggled a bit at the start. But after 10 minutes, we adapted to the situation. We controlled the game. We had another chance with Sonny that hit the bar. After that, I think that they had some intensity in the game with winning some offensive duels, and that created a situation where we struggled a bit and the game changed. But they found a way to score, and we didn't. This is the history of the game. What do you take, Pat, from those comments there from Stellini? Do you agree that was particularly a good performance in the first half?
I'm so angry that I would just want to grab him and shake him, grab him by the neck and just shake him and tell him that football is 90 minutes. It's not 45 minutes. It's not one half, like as in first half, or it's not second half, as we've been second half FC for the majority of the first part of the season. It's 90 minutes. The first half, don't get me wrong, we were sensational. I thought we played some really good football. We were brave. We played on the front foot. We were unfortunate not to go into the game, into the half with a goal lead. They were quite smart in terms of how they, dark arts, feigning injuries, doing stuff to slow the game down, almost like Newcastle-esque. They knew they couldn't hang with us, so they did what they did to slow the game down, have a few timeouts. Smart game management, fair play to them. Second half, they made changes. They made, I think, 2 or 3 at the break, and you could see the difference straight away. Adama Traore was ripping Ben Davies to pieces every time on that left-hand flank, whipping in crosses, something that we've all said he has no end product. He definitely had end product today. He was tearing Ben Davies a new one, and then obviously they made changes and grew into the game. Stellini could see that. Make changes and adapt as well. Do something. Bring on another midfielder. Get Richarlison on. Dan Juma. Like you said, we hijacked him from Everton to do what? He's not played any meaningful minutes in any of our games. We had it's just it's so annoying because the game was there for the taking. Wolves were there for the taking.
Pat, you're making such a good point, but the thing is, what most managers would do is maybe not just change the players, but change the system. But we're not allowed to at Tottenham. We just can't, and that is such a vulnerability, and every other manager knows that, and that puts the back foot straight away.
And not to dig Skip out, because I do like him and I understand he's quite young and I understand he's come back from some big injuries, but I'm sorry, he wasn't good enough today. He was like a second behind every tackle. He was giving the ball away. Get him off and bring someone else on. You know, we got Sarr. Why is Sarr not playing? Sarr will have a great game and then not play again for 2 or 3 weeks. And when he does come on, he's playing 2 or 3 minutes. I'm sorry, but their game management and how they handle players is so poor. Like, if you look at how Pep Guardiola manages his squad, even when Jack Grealish isn't playing or Foden, they bring them in, they ease them in, and slowly but surely they come good. And then, you know, it's because he manages them properly. Sarr won't play for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they get thrown in the deep end, have a bad game. We all jump on him. And I'm just saying Sarr, it could be anyone. It's the same for all of our players. And then they don't play again. Richarlison didn't have a great game when he came on, but he plays like 8 minutes here or there. It's just weird how we handle our players. The tactics are poor. Like you said, we never change anything. We're so predictable. Even a team in the third tier will know how to set up and play against us because we do the same thing week in and week out. And it's literally, we're just reading from a script every game now. Yeah, we're more resolute and harder to break down, but second half, we'll switch off here or there. Ben Davies will make a poor pass out. And again, sorry, I'm going back. Let me go into the point that we play out from the back and we don't have good progressive ball play and centre backs apart from Romero that can do the job. So we're always on the back foot because these guys will pass the ball behind somebody or their fizz are passing to someone and the weight of pass is not good enough. And then we're just literally scrambling. And I think one of the Wolves players, I think it was Cunha or somebody, if he was much better, he would have scored because we literally gave him literally a one-on-one with Fraser Forster because we just keep giving the ball away in dangerous areas. So there's so much to do here. We need a clean up from top to bottom. Yeah, to be honest, I love Antonio Conte in terms of what he is and what he's about, but it's not a good marriage. It's not a good relationship. And it almost feels like it's like he wants us to feel like we're privileged for him to be here. It should be a thing where he should love the club and we should love him. It shouldn't be a thing where we're always mates. It's almost like a toxic relationship. You're in a relationship with a girl, or if you're female, you're in a relationship with a guy, and they're always telling you how lucky you are to be with them. How, you know, they're a 10 and you're a 3 and you're lucky to be around them. And I'm the person that brings you up when I'm out with you. I'm the one that makes you look good. And it's almost like that's how Conte sees us. And it shouldn't be like that. And I'm kind of...
Hope you're listening to this, Mrs. Cracknell.
Mrs. Cracknell, I didn't say that, so don't try and put that on me.
I'm glad I'm 2,000 miles away, Rick. I
bet you are. You know what's interesting, Pat, just to add to that before we do go for the break is, you know, whilst you say that with Conte, that there is a feeling right now that I think what we would all just accept is having somebody in charge that would just love the club, that would just basically give us the basic foundations of respect for the club. But what I would say in the defense of the likes of the Antonios and the Jose Mourinhos is that, and I can't get away from saying this, that we don't know as a board, and I'm just going to make a point here, that we don't know what we want. We employ these win now managers, but then we don't give them the win now tools to get the results. So it's as much as about those managers as it is about the appointments that we make. And just to again remind you of the words Daniel Levy used at the point of when we sacked Jose Mourinho and we were looking for his replacement, he said, "We are acutely aware of the need to select someone whose values reflect those of our great club and return to playing football with the style which we are known for, free-flowing, attacking and entertaining, while continuing to embrace our desire to see young players flourish from our academy alongside experienced talent." And then we went and hired Nuno Espirito Santo, who is one of the most defensive managers, arguably, you could have at the time in the Premier League. So as fans, we have gone through, since Poch, 5, 6, 7 years of defensively cautious managers that don't tend to play a progressive pattern of football. But in the case of Jose and Antonio, they do normally demand and provide an instant success route, as in trophies. And we haven't had it under Jose. It looks very unlikely now we're going to have it under Antonio unless he miraculously comes back refreshed, rejuvenated, which I personally can't see. I might be wrong. And we go on to win the Champions League. Now, of course, we did reach a final. And many would say we're very lucky to get to that Champions League final. But I just feel the way we are as fans right now does, for me, dictate a lot of where the season goes, where midpoint last season, there was a genuine belief that when we all came together, we would achieve fourth because we were all together. Right now, when I look at the difference between last season and this season now, which is where we hit form, and I think we won 15 of the last 17 games, we right now just, everything feels different from the top in terms of that communication and that connection with the chairman and the ownership, right through to the players, right through to the fans. There is no link that gives me any hope that this is going to get any better. I can only see worse, and I really want to be wrong here, Cracks. But before we go for the break, I don't know if you want to come in there, Cracks, and give your tuppence worth on that.
Do you know, the chairman of a football club should be able to, at half-time, walk around the stadium and speak to fans, and some will have a difference of opinion, but he just couldn't do that. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Daniel done a fans forum at the ground along with Hugo Lloris, Poch, Daniel, and hosted brilliantly by Coity. And he went into a room full of Spurs fans and done like a Q&A night. Now, the chairman of a club should be able to do that. Could you imagine now, everyone, Daniel walking into like one of the conference rooms at the new stadium with 600-700 people there or something, 500, 300. It would be chaos, wouldn't it? And, you know, that it is literally read the room. If you can't do that as the chairman of a football club, then you're not running your football club right. It's as simple as that. Yes, of course, you know, you will get a few people that would have something to say, some difficult questions, yeah. But at the moment, he couldn't do it. And that's not right. A chairman should always be able to do something like a forum like that, you know. It's the statement you said about that Daniel wrote with the free-flowing football, it all feels a little bit like tweet something like, doesn't it? You know, he's probably gone to the press department and can you knock me some old cobblers together about what Spurs is? And they've come up with this. He's had a scan read of it. He'll go, is that what they like here? Is this what the fans of this club like? Yeah. They like a bit of free flying football and a bit of there is to do. Oh, okay, yeah, put that out then, and I'll sign the bottom of it. It's like the manager's notes, isn't it, in the programme? You know, we know they're not writing that, and he's not writing that. There's no love and care for the football club and the heritage for me. It just doesn't feel like it's there, Rick. That's the problem we've got. You know, there's no love and attention to it, and that spreads down. Your chairman and your board should set a tone and, you know, a culture and a philosophy, and then appoint a manager that does, and they players, and that feeds down, you know. So until you get that back, you've got nothing, absolutely nothing.
And Cracks, can I just I know you go to break, Ricky, but very quickly, I think that's such an important point, and I have said this before on this show, but we have no idea really what the hierarchy. Well, we do know what the hierarchy wants. They want to make as much money as possible, and then maybe one day sell the club for a huge amount of money. Has anybody ever heard Joe Lewis say anything about why about what he wants? And Daniel Levy's not a natural communicator, but I totally agree with you. If at least he had been more ever present over the past 3 or 4 years, at least trying to explain his philosophy, why they selected X, why they selected Y, all this sort of thing. I'm sure, I mean, he's a bright man. He could make some good points. And I think the fans would at least appreciate the honesty and a bit more understanding. But there's a deafening silence, and there has been at the top of this club ever since Enoch took over. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that Spurs have.
Marcus, look, it's hard to disagree. And I think we have to make this point. Look, a lot of people calling for the fact of a managerial change. Lots of calling for the fact, you know, Pochettino, whether it's De Zerbi, whoever that may be, those that are sick with Antonio Conte. I think we have to remember the fact that I've got no doubt that if Antonio Conte leaves Tottenham, I am sure 100% positive he will leave Tottenham and he'll go on to be a winner elsewhere. the same as Jose did, because ultimately Spurs are caught in this cycle now where, for me, they are pretenders. They employ and appoint the big now win managers, but ultimately, as I kept on saying, I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, if you are not going to give these guys the tools, there is absolutely no point in doing it. And look, for those that are calling for Maurizio back at the club, I love Pochettino. I'm sure the guys already love Pochettino. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Towards the end of Poch's reign, I felt Maurizio did lose that dressing room and there was a need for a change. But what you've got to ask yourselves and remind yourselves is those that are now calling for Maurizio to come back, I'm sure in the initial return, he'll love being back at this club. But please don't forget the sole reason why Maurizio towards the end fell out of love with the club and became frustrated and angry the same way we did. Because ultimately, this is just my opinion, Maurizio can come back, but until something fundamentally changes at the top, nothing's going to really change at all. And you've seen that through 20 years here, that it's the one trophy and multiple different managers of all different types of nature. Cracks has interviewed, of course, the wonderful Harry Redknapp, and along with other managers as well that have been under our reign. I don't know if you would come back in there, Marcus. I could see you keen to come back in.
I think it's, I mean, the first, if Pochettino does come back, and I do think that's obviously where we're going to go next, if he's still available, the first question I'd like to ask him is, okay, because Maurizio, I think you have to agree, you undervalued the domestic cups first time around. I mean, you said that winning the FA Cup, winning the League Cup was not what it was all about. It was winning the league and it was winning the Champions League, and he came very close to doing both of those things. The first question I said to him, right, Maurizio, this coming season, what's more important for you? Another top four finish or a good cup run? And in that case, will you pick your strongest 11? Say we've got a quarter final at Sheffield United 3 days before an away game at Wolves, and see how he answers that, because he's going to be hamstrung probably if Daniel Levy is still insisting on a top four finish. So it may, unfortunately, not solve any problems. I've just got one set of stats I'll quickly give you since the turn of the century. So we're in, going up to the end of 2022, obviously there have been 22 FA Cup finals, 22 League Cup finals. So you've got 44 pieces of silverware up for grabs. Now, we're supposedly part of the big five, the big whatever we are. But Arsenal, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea have helped themselves to just about everything. In the FA Cup, the only teams, aside from those, the big ones, to win the FA Cup are Wigan, Leicester and Portsmouth. And if you look at the League Cup, you take away all the years that Arsenal, United, City, Liverpool and Chelsea won it, you've got Blackburn, who beat us in the final, Middlesbrough, Birmingham, Swansea, and actually Spurs. We did win the League Cup in 2008. But it goes to show how difficult it is to win a domestic competition, unless you get lucky. And Swansea, for example, is an example of that. You've got to take it seriously. And this is the big problem. We don't take it seriously. And I still fear that even if Pochettino takes over, he won't be able to take the domestic cups seriously enough, because he'll have Daniel Levy behind him going, we've got to finish top four. Why, Daniel? We're going to invest in loads more players to win, to have a stronger squad. Well, it doesn't happen. And that's why we have this perpetual circle.
Agree.
Yeah,
go on, Pat.
And I just wanted to say the reason why these managers can't take it seriously is because our squads aren't good enough. When you rotate one or two or three players, you see how poor we are. If Romero doesn't start, we are absolutely woeful. If you take out one or two like Bentancur or Højbjerg and replace them with who we have on the bench, we're a shambles. Davinson Sanchez, crap. If you look at all these guys that are literally rotational pieces, they're not good enough. So we're not at the level where, dare I say, a City, even Newcastle have probably stronger options off the bench than we do in regards to defensive units and midfield pieces. And that's why these managers are in this position where they're like, their hands are tied. And don't get me wrong, Pochettino, he really did frustrate me, because there were times when we should have definitely done much better, or he made bad decisions like playing Son at wing back against Chelsea. That was so poor. Those weird decisions. But until investment is made in the club and we treat it properly in terms of the squad and we upgrade on our pieces, we're always going to be in this position where we're only good enough to really challenge for the, for top four. We're not good enough to go on a good cup run and have top four. Something's always got to give with us, because ultimately we're just not good enough.
No, we're not. What we are going to do, look, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. For those that are listening on audio, again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support. For those that can stomach it, you are going to hear next from Christian Stellini, who gives you his reaction to that defeat up at Wolves. And like I say, after this break, we'll be getting into some of your listener statements. We have had, I must apologise, guys, we've had over 80 listener statements come in. We would love to read every single one of them out. We would be here till midnight plus, and I think we would kill off not only our wonderful esteemed guests, but also you lovely listeners and viewers right now. But again, thank you so much for all the incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. We've got over 1,000 of you watching us live across all of our platforms. So again, can't thank you enough for giving up your Saturday night. We're joined by the wonderful Richard Cracknell in Great Britain. This man was at Sheffield during the week, getting all the love he was getting from Last Word on Spurs. I think he enjoyed the annual leave as much as he could, and he was back tonight, dreading it. I don't know, he was. We're joined by the superb broadcaster, host, Marcus Buckland, who I must say has also got another Spurs, also running a Spurs podcast as well right now. We're going to ask Marcus a little bit more about that towards the end of the show, the Tottenham way. Please go and check those guys out. We need as much therapy as we can right now on Spurs, and I think the Spurs podcasts are going up in the world because of just how much therapy is needed. And we're also joined by the wonderful YouTuber, Spurs podcaster, the brilliant Patrick Tyrant, back on Last Word on Spurs and giving us some real hard-hitting views as ever. Right, guys, what I am going to do very quickly, I am going to share some of the stats from today as painful as they have been. Again, I know we're not going to want to look back at the game, but it's just something we have to unfortunately do. Spurs dominating the shots, 21 in regards to 8. Spurs also shading the shots on target, 6-5. Number of fouls committed, 11-18. Spurs edging it on the fouls. Possession-wise, Spurs actually, possession-wise, were in more of a dominative nature in that game. They were 54%. Wolves the 46%. You could probably argue that's a little bit ski-whiffed in terms of that last 10-15 minutes where Wolves really did take that game by the scruff of the neck, made the proactive changes that we suggested, and went on to retrieve the result. And ironically, there, you see the XG there. Spurs with a higher XG, despite the fact of 1.42 not even scoring today. And there you saw Wolves 0.50. It just says it all right now with Tottenham, just the nature of this football club. Just in relation to some of the listening stamps that we've had in today, again, thank you so much. I'm going to read some of these out right now because I say we had so many people get in touch with Last Word on Spurs that we always try and reflect the flavour if we can in terms of those listening stamps, which I'm going to bring up in a second. Once I can try and scroll through and find them here. Over 80 of them, as I've said on the show. So the first one here is from Chris Mardell, who says, if Lucas Moura is the answer, can anyone tell us what the question is? Dennis Menace says, teams enjoy playing against us until we can change our attitude, mentality. It will always be this way. MJB says, this match was a perfect summary to prove Spurs desperately need a midfield and some defensive help. Longley is just poor. Perisic hasn't made a real impact since the World Cup. Højbjerg simply can't do it on his own. They need more talent on the roster to continuously compete. Simple as that. Dave Pedley says, unfortunately, I'm Conte out. Style of play is poor. Bored most games. Get a new guy in so we can have a full pre-season to implement his new ideas and decide on the players he likes and dislikes. Jamie Marsh says, just pressingly predictable beyond belief. However, I don't think this happens if we had taken the FA Cup seriously, won the game, and therefore kept our momentum going. And Jamie, I do think you're absolutely spot on there. And LD says, what subs would the panel have made and when? And I think that's where we are going to go next. Again, I would love to be able to read out all your questions. As always, guys, get your listener statements into us over at Last Word on Spurs. We'll try and read as many as we can after games. Marcus, we're going to come back to you. So Christian Stellini was asked why Spurs didn't make subs earlier to the match to try and match Wolves' second half energy. And if he was tempted to do so, Ali Gold asked him. He said, no, the team only needed 5 minutes to adapt. We were playing well and the pace and we controlled the game. There wasn't a reason to change. After we changed, because there was a reason to change, we needed more energy and to interrupt the pace in the game. But we only needed one detail to change the story of that game. I mean, look, as I say that, I feel like it feels like he's talking in riddles. I've got to be honest with you. I didn't actually understand the answer that he gave. But you tell us, Marcus, that game today, we saw Lucas Moura coming on for Kulusevski. Now, Lucas Moura is leaving the club in the summer on a free transfer. He's leaving on a free transfer. And Danjuma, who was hijacked from Everton, scored against Preston, has not had a look in. Can you simply understand this for you? Can you get it?
One word answer, no. I mean, Chris said, if Lucas Moura's the answer, what's the question? The question is, what's the most ridiculous selection that Spurs have come up with over the past few years, and that was starting him the other night at Sheffield United when we know he's leaving at the end of the season. I love Lucas Moura. We'll never forget what he did in that Champions League semi-final, but I mean, he's leaving, and I totally agree with what both the boys said about earlier in terms of how we manage our players. What must Danjuma feel? I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he makes an immediate impact in the cup game at Preston. We haven't really seen him since then. Richarlison, it's a difficult situation, but you can see how I think he's losing his way massively. And I know he was poor the other night at Bramall Lane, but he's barely had a kick. And I sense that if you're not in the team, you're kind of shunned around Tottenham and you lose all your confidence. And then, as Patrick said, when you do come in, it's really hard to make an impression because you're struggling for confidence. So some of the selection policies just do not make sense. That includes today. I thought, I love Sonny, but we'd stumbled on something by leaving him on the bench. He comes on and he makes a difference. But he's been brought back in. I thought Richarlison had to be given a number of starts, and I know he wasn't very good the other day, but I want to persist with that. And why Porro was taken off when, to me, he was looking pretty good down the right-hand side. So I'm afraid I can't answer the riddles that Stellini obviously came out with in his post-match press conference. Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Just a comment from Sava here. Sava very kindly put a comment here. He says, big up Ricky and the panel. Owners, manager, director of football and youth team all are not aligned. A lot needs to change at this club. Conte is a dinosaur. Subs are woeful. Other than that, happy Saturday evening. And it's very hard, thanks, Sava, to disagree with that. There's just so much in there to try and cram that in, where there is so much just disablement throughout the whole club right now. It's so hard. I mean, Pat, if I can bring you in just on the nature of the substitutions, Spurs, like I said, we finally do make the sub. And as we said, it's surprisingly Lucas Moura for Kulusevski. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised because it seems in these last couple of games we have seen that they favoured Moura, who has literally only just got back to training, let alone playing, over Danjuma, who, like I said, scored against Preston. Just can't understand why he's not getting a look in. And it's just baffling that we didn't take up Lucas's contract option, but yet then we find ourselves where he's ahead of both Danjuma and 60 million Richarlison in the pecking order. How does this make any sense, Pat? Does it make any sense?
Honestly, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know what? When I did this, it made me think, every time Marcus Rashford scores and he does that, someone needs to just actually show Conte or Stellini that use your brain, use your head. Because honestly, it's absolutely bonkers. Moura's going. And when I saw that we didn't, basically activate the option to extend Lucas Moura's contract, I was actually happy. I was like, fantastic. For once, we've shown some ruthlessness, because it would be very easy to add another year and keep him around and do what we're doing now, play him sporadically and in these moments. I loved Lucas Moura in his heyday. That night in Amsterdam, I'll never forget it. The hat-trick against Huddersfield, that goal against Manchester United. Other than that, I can't really tell you any other moments, because the guy looks good. He dribbles. He looks exciting. He runs at players, but ultimately he's got no end product. He's not good enough, and I was happy to see him moved on. Of course, you feel a bit sad. It's almost like the Eric Lamela thing. You feel a bit sad because they gave a lot to the team, but ultimately it's time to refresh, start again, and bring in better quality. Danjuma is better quality. He's shown, last year in the Champions League, he had a fantastic output in terms of goals and assists. The guy is a good player, but he's not been given a fair crack. And I agree. I agree with what we were saying earlier about how Richarlison hasn't looked good, but we need to give him a consistent run out. We know the guy's got quality. He's shown in the World Cup, playing for Brazil, he can do it. Everton, he's shown that he can, be relied upon. Watford as well. But again, he plays here and there, has a bad game, and then you're taken out, and that's it, and you don't come back in. And players, when they know that that's the case, they're always going to play. It's almost like they're playing not with a chip on their shoulder, but they're playing like, you can see they're playing a bit scared. They're a bit tentative. They're not relaxed. They're not able to do what they want to do because one mistake and you're off. And for me, again, I don't understand why Sonny was starting. Again, I love Son, fantastic, one of my favourite players of all time in the Spurs shirt, but he hasn't been good this season. And to be fair, when he comes off the bench in the 70th or 80th minute, he gives teams the fight of their life, because you know how quick and good he is on the ball and tired legs, and he always makes an impact. But starting him, it's just, We just do the easy option. We're cowards. You know, it's easy to bring on Lucas Moura. You know, it's easy to play Son. We're scared of upsetting anyone. Perisic playing all these minutes when his legs are clearly gone. You just do the easy thing. Kane never gets subbed off. Never. I think I looked at something the other day, and I think Kane's played the third most amount of minutes in the Premier League, and the other two were goalkeepers, because obviously goalkeepers never get subbed off. And the guy's just playing all the time. Take him off. Bring on another option. Or bring on someone else up front with Kane. It's like the same predictable subs. You can literally read a script of what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. Yeah, it's...
You know what, Rick? I wouldn't be surprised somewhere in the darkened corridors of power at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, or whatever we're calling it this week, there's conversations that are had whereby it will be, but if we play Dan Juma in this loan for X amount of games, we have to pay X amount more for that loan period, because these things do go on in contracts. You know, if a player X makes 25 appearances, then you owe team Y this much, or if they get this many goals. So Dan Juma not playing doesn't surprise me, because it probably doesn't trigger another level of payments. And you know what? Probably the same with Sonny, that it's looked at and it's like, well, from a footballing perspective, he probably needs a bit of a break and drop in and maybe give him a bit of a, you know, kick up the arse, But somebody, again, in them powers of corridor go, but have you seen how many of his fellow countrymen are buying tickets and coming over? And then they come into the mega store and they're spending on average 500 quid each. And do you know where I'm coming from? I think there's a lot of financial elements that come into this, and pressures of raising X amount of money that get borne onto the management of the football side of it. I wouldn't surprise me at all if upstairs is leaning on the management of the team a lot of the time, with image rights and finances and what it would cost to play someone, not play someone. I think there's just this constant half an eye on the sheets, on the balance sheets, Rick, and that's the worrying thing. It's that's the culture. As Jason's often said, that stadium got built. Nothing was too much money. Nothing was too much trouble. Everything was like world class and elite. Absolutely, like the full shebang went at it. Get to the football side of it, it's just not the same culture.
Completely opposite, isn't it?
Culture
yeah,
at
I think you know. So I think, Crack, you might have said this, that we always push the boundaries for anything off pitch related, don't we? You know, we're now
that's
we're
fine, Rick.
No problem with that. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. As long as it gets reinvested back into the side, I've got no problem with that. And I think that's the question mark, isn't it?
If you're raising all this money by putting concerts on and NFL and everything, and people coming along and having a good time and spending money at the club, listen. It's not selling arms to regimes, is it? And
it's an organic way, isn't it? It's an organic way of doing it. The frustration is it's such an organic way of doing it, but
ethical way of doing it. It's a brilliant plan, but that it needs to be seen through to go into what we are primarily, a football club, and. We're just not at the moment. We're just not that. There's not enough attention put on it. See, I think what the hierarchy needs to do is put somebody in charge that will set the tone and the levels and the culture for the football, and back them. If they haven't got any idea, that's fine. As long as they've got the money, that's fine, you know. And if they say to the manager, this is the kind of budget that we can give you, which is, by the way, has now been upped because we've got, you know, concerts and everything going on. Brilliant. That's fine. And let a good manager and his team set the tone and the culture and pick who those players come in. And that's fine. You know, it's all that's pretty much what we had with Poch until they decided not to invest in him any further and pulled the rug from under him. So, you know, it'd be ideal if it came right from the top, but at least let it come from the manager down and just keep us happy. And, you know, they've stuck another naught on the end of everything that the fans have to shell out for with tickets and shirts. Same with you, just have to absolutely do the same with the players that you're bringing in and the budgets for the players.
But point, you've just said it. You've said it. Primarily, it's supposedly a football club. It's not. It's a business. That's
exactly.
It's not. Yeah, that's the priority.
Yeah,
but it can be both, Marcus. It can be both. It really can. It can be all the things, but at the moment,
you're right. But you need them, but the manager. But you're right. You need the person at the top to want it to be like that.
But we've discussed this, the fact that, you know, during this week, it feels like the most important thing right now is applying to Haringey Council for an additional, I think, extra seating plan for Beyonce, and we've got the chairman over in Bahrain. Whereas arguably this has been the most season-defining week for Tottenham, where FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League. Where's the chairman? Where's the owner of the football club? He's not even here. He's not even vacant.
It's a go-karts or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Marcus, I just want to bring it back to the subs before, like I say, we finish off Wolves and look ahead to AC Milan. In regards to, like I say, these substitutions, you know, I think you have to ask the question, number one, is it a Conte or Stellini sub? And then number two, just on that first change, it appears to be quite a bad moment for Richarlison and both Danjuma, that we had Danjuma signed to replace Hill, but Hill has seen more game time than Danjuma. And Danjuma, as I said, has completely disappeared after that promising debut from Preston. I mean, it seems what a way to kill any kind of form or impact that player could make. And then Richie, a player that also needs games to be played into form, gets introduced not until the 84th minute. £60 million makes way from Ben Davies coming on when the team are a goal down. These changes too late, aren't they? Too reactive.
I think we all agree about that, but there's no logic to the selection policies, as we've mentioned a couple of times. The team was based or set up on Wednesday night with today's match in mind. Totally misguided. Pat's right, because we go out of the FA Cup and we lose the momentum that we built up by beating Chelsea and West Ham. It's just so obvious. And I'd love to know on Wednesday, when the team was selected at Bramall Lane, I'd love to know what Harry Kane thought and whether, because of who he is and his influence, etc., he has any say in the selection. I'm assuming he doesn't, because surely we know he wants silverware, and surely he would have wanted to have started at Sheffield United. So that just fills my head with total confusion.
Marcus, I just got to tell you this, Marcus, before you carry on. Someone's asking if you've got into witness protection. All we can see is your mouth right now moving. Yeah. It's almost like, you know, this podcast is killing you off.
My head's about. It's going to be like remember that film Scanners. My head's going to. Yeah. You wouldn't want to see that. But sorry,
this won't apply to our audio. This won't apply to our YouTube viewers, not audio listeners. I must say, wouldn't understand a clue what just happened.
No. The bottom line is, I am so mystified, and the whole Kane thing tonight. By the way, I know this is for another time, but I really feel for the first time ever, Harry Kane has to leave the club for his sanity, and I think for the chance for things to move on. But that I don't want to throw that in right now. That's another incendiary subject that could get us all going crazy.
Yeah. I don't think it is, Marcus. I think he does deserve to have something from his career, like domestic football, some honours. He's given us an incredible service, and I wouldn't be angry with Harry Kane for going to win something. I'd be angry with the club for not giving him that here when there's no reason not to be able to build yourself up to his level, to bring the club up. This is what we said, Rick, when Antonio Conte came, wasn't it? The Welcome Antonio show, which went much better, by the way, than the Welcome Nuno show. Let me tell you.
These feel a long time ago now, Cracks. These were happy times. Happy times.
But we said on that show, Rick, we said, now the club must bring itself up to Antonio's level. if you're going to bring in Antonio, run it how a manager like Antonio wants it run. If not, go and get yourself a young project manager and follow like the Brighton route, if you like, but with a few more quid thrown at it, because there's obviously more money being generated at the club. So it's a mess. It's a mess of policies at the moment. We're all over the place.
Yeah. Mark, if I can bring Pat in, if you don't mind, Pat, I'm just going to go through the team for today. Then we'll unfortunately have to discuss the goal and then look ahead to AC Milan to come. You know, we made that joke that, you know, if the Sheffield United team was a lineup that had, again, Wolves in mind, you could argue that the team we had today was very much kind of with one eye on AC Milan to come. We saw, and Ali Gold always wonder if he breaks this down, Harry Kane, Oliver Skipp, Clement Longley, Romero, Kulusevski all come back into that team with obviously relatively fresh legs, while Emerson Royale did recover from a knee issue in time for the game, but remained on the bench with Pedro Porro keeping his place in the side. And I think lots of us were excited to see the dynamism that we might see with both Romero and Porro together and how that pairing would transpire and work. At centre-back, as it did seem very, very clear, Spurs had Wednesday firmly on their mind. With Eric Dyer suspended for that Champions League match, we had Christian Romero, Clement Longley, where he will likely play on Wednesday with Dyer suspension and Ben Davies start together, perhaps to get them ready in time for that. I'll judge whether you think they've got themselves ready on the back of that performance. Up front, it was Sonny preferred over Richarlison and the underused Arnold Danjuma remaining on the bench. So that team read Forster, Romero, Longley, Davis, Porro, Højbjerg, Skipp, Perisic, Kulusevski, Kane, Son, with a bench of Austin, Sanchez, Tanganga, Dyer, Emerson, Sarr, Danjuma, Lucas, Ritchie. Pat, when you first initially saw the team, what were your immediate thoughts?
Initially, I was a bit baffled about Langley playing in the middle of a back three. But then, like you said, I quickly reminded myself that Eric Dyer was suspended for Wednesday, so it made sense of bringing him in. I was really worried because obviously two left-footed centre-backs side by side, and none of them are great together, or none of them are great, period. So I was a bit worried at that. Romero, I'm never going to be worried about him. He's quality through and through. You saw at the end of the game, he definitely did get rattled and lose his head. And that is probably my only black mark against Romero, is that sometimes things can get to him. And a centre-back of his stature and his ilk should be able to remain cool regardless, because there was 2 or 3 minutes left and he started losing it and fouling players. And realistically, he shouldn't be doing that because we need the ball. Pedro Porro, I was excited to see him in a full game. But this is another thing that really irks me. Because we spent so long bringing in Porro, he's now basically 2 or 3 weeks behind where he should be if he was brought in at the beginning of the window. This was our number one target, somebody that we wanted and tracked the whole window. You know, the whole world and their grand knew that we were after him. Why didn't we just pay the release clause and get him in? And then he would have been ready by now, because obviously he's a fantastic player and he looks comfortable out there, but you can see that he's still not adjusted to the Premier League and his teammates, and that will take time. And obviously we don't have time right now because we need to get wins as it stands. Kulusevski, for me, looks a bit jaded, fantastic player. You saw, a few good touches. You saw him roast a man here or there, but he doesn't look the same guy as this time last year. And I think there's a lot of pressure being put on him. We rushed him back because he's our only creative spark, and he's played a lot of minutes since his return from injury, and it's kind of showing now. Oliver Skipp, like I said before, I really like the guy, so I don't want to be too critical because he is young and he just come back. But I'm going to sound a bit harsher. I don't think he's good enough, if I'm being honest. I know he played great last week against Chelsea, scored a fantastic goal. But in games like today, where he should be taking control, we only play 2 in midfield. So both of those midfielders have got to be fantastic. And I just think that partnership with Højbjerg and Skipp is too similar. They're two of the samey type of players. And
you know what, Pat? Just to interrupt you on Skipp, I thought he played quite well, but similar to Højbjerg. I think the problem for me is I think they just both got overrun in midfield.
Yeah.
I agree. There are much of a muchness. It honestly baffles me how Spurs. I'll let you come back in on this, Pat, very quickly on this. It baffles me how Conte has not looked at this squad and thought, we need a number 10. We need a lot picker. We need somebody of that nature that's going to open up games. I'm staggered, Pat, how we've allowed these signings and not made a number 10.
Maddison was there he's a great player, great age, English. We've been tracking him for ages. We know he'll come in and fit in right away. He plays for Leicester all over the pitch, has that creative license, that creative freedom, can score a goal. fantastic on dead ball situations, and we know he can pick a pass. He would be fantastic in our team. We could rotate him, play him as a 2, play him as a 3, play him as a 10. Why didn't we go for him? The fact, like Højbjerg and Skip are good players, but they're too similar. So when they're not played with Bentancur, you see the deficiencies there. And like I said, I don't want to go too hard on Skip because he is young. This is, he's had 2 big injuries and he's just coming back. I do like him, but for me, I don't know. I just wasn't impressed with him today, if I'm being real. Maybe I'm making him a scapegoat. Sometimes, when you're angry, you just kind of pick on a player. And maybe when I watch back the game and I'm choked, maybe I'll be, I was a bit harsh on him. But right now, I feel that he could have done more and he was just a bit late in the tackle. Very lucky not to get a yellow card. And he just something frustrated me in his performance today. Son, again, I don't know, where do I stand with him? In the first half, he looked good. He looked like his old self. But as the game goes on, he played most of it. You're not doing enough for me, Sonny. Like, you're fantastic. You're meant to be a world-class player. You won the Golden Boot last year. And regardless if, you're just a bit unfortunate, you hit the crossbar, you're not taking the game by the scruff of the neck and bringing us through these moments. It seems like now, if Harry Kane doesn't do something, we don't win a game.
And
it shouldn't be like that.
No, I agree. Totally.
So
that's
probably my analysis on the team, if I'm being fair.
And Pat, just because I love you, do not watch back that game for your own sanity. Please do not put yourself through 90 and a bit minutes of watching that. It's bad enough when it's going to end up on the Matchday Super Cut tonight, let alone put yourself to watch it back through. Yeah. Please don't do it to yourself. Argue that first half, Spurs did dominate proceedings, to be honest with you. Kane getting a lot of abuse. I mean, Wolves fans really particularly don't seem to like him. I think it might have been from a couple of years ago where he was booked on one occasion and then following on from that on several occasions during the time he's played Wolves, he seems to have wound their fans up. I mean, I thought a big point in the game, which may have gone in Spurs' favour, was ironically, obviously, seeing Diego Costa stretch it off. But of course, Raul Jimenez coming on, he's got a really good record against Spurs. So it meant Wolves did have to change initially and lose a sub from the beginning. We saw Kane send Sonny through as he cut inside before blazing horribly over. And Spurs ended that half, Marcus, with 11 shots to Wolves' none. And I think there was no reason going into half-time where we had all the confidence, all the momentum to think, okay, come out second half and keep playing like that. And that's what we did. We hit the bar for a second time. Son went through. But, again, it's similar to Middlesbrough vibes, Marcus, and the game we saw in the weekend at Sheffield United, that when the game isn't going to the plan and the tune we want it to, that we almost capitulate ourselves and force the errors that then allow the opposition to get on track. Wolves, as I said, making the changes. We've discussed the subs already. Proactive from Julian Lopetegui. You have to say that. And ultimately, when Wolves did go in front, you couldn't say they didn't deserve it, Marcus. Do you agree?
By then, you could sense exactly, I think, like Sheffield United the other night, there was this horrible feeling as I watched that game. By then, you knew we weren't going to score against Sheffield United, and you were just waiting for them to have a little moment of magic, and it happened. And I'm afraid you're right. For 55 minutes, I thought we were pretty good, and we were unlucky. We could have been 2 up. We did okay, but when we don't score, you're absolutely right. We lack the inspiration, the variety to change things around, and it just grinds on. And it came as absolutely no surprise to me when Wolves did score. And just to go back to the point that Pat's making, I mean, and you did, Ricky, crying out that if we weren't going to get Eriksen back in the summer, we had to get a creative midfield player, somebody who today might have just delivered the ball that unlocked the Wolves' defence. And I want to see Sonny sticking one in from 3 yards out. I know what he's like when he jinks and runs and he curls one off the bar from 25 yards, but we need a little through ball and somebody just to stick it away from 5 yards, and that could have been Maddison. They're now talking about Ward-Prowse for next season. Trossard, I mean, we were being linked with him in January, and what he's gone and done for that team in red and white. And that's another reason I can't watch Match of the Day tonight, by the way, because of what they. But on a plus side, that is good because let them believe they're going to win the league. Let it go on for a bit longer, because when
see what Marcus said,
it's going to be that much sweeter.
I hope so, Marcus. With every game that passes, it feels like it's going to become more and more a possibility.
Rick, isn't it sad, though, that a club of Tottenham's stature and where we was until we've fallen off the cliff, now our only hope this season is watching their failure.
That's terrible.
Rick, that's West Ham. That's West Ham levels. Yeah. And, what we've become. Again, the chairman that can't walk round or do a Q&A evening with the fans, and the chairman whose fan base now only have the trophy, in inverted commas, of their failure. And that I don't want that. I want it to be about us and what we win, not their failure. It's like I know we make a bit of, and you know, if and when it happens at the end of the season, man alive, I'll be all over them like a rash. I really will. We'll do. That's, you know, that's the schadenfreude of being a football fan, isn't it? But come on, that's not where we should be. Is like our only thing left now is them falling over, and that's I don't want to be in that place anymore. Not when people, not me personally, because I don't go that often, but you know, every pound's a prisoner these days, and people are still handing over $2,000 a year for season tickets and spending out hundreds for away tickets. And
the highest ticket price in the country.
The only joy of the season is watching them foul. It's wrong.
No, I agree. I do agree, but I agree with what Marcus says there. I mean, I really, really do hope sincerely that.
Oh yeah, they're going to get it. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, listen, I hope so. But we listen, with every passing game and the way they're coming back, it's becoming harder and harder to see it. Especially it pains me. Right, we'll discuss the Wolves goal, guys, and then we'll go straight to AC Milan. Look, I have to also say one point: the Harry Kane free kick alert. Porro had hit the bar. Porro had hit the bar with a free kick. Rather than let the bloke take the second one, we give it back to Harry Kane. I'm so done on the Harry Kane free kick cycle. I mean, at what point do we just get over it? Get over it, Antonio. Get over it, Christian. Get over it. Whoever is doing this in training, whatever they're seeing, it's not coming into the effect of the games. Just stop it. Just stop it. We're not seeing any success with this. We really, really aren't. But look, Wolves, as I said, they made the changes, to be fair to them. We saw Forster actually before the goal, made a couple of decent saves, and it was all within the space of a couple of minutes. You know, we then saw Wolves should have been one in front. Long with a poor pass, I think, as Pat alluded to earlier. Moutinho found Jimenez, who fed the ball through to Kahuna, and he hit the side of him in 14 yards. And Spurs were at that point on the ropes. They were on the ropes. And shock horror, Marcus, to come over to you. It was Adama Traore. Forster denied Jimenez, but then we saw Traore first to the loose ball. He fired it home via the crossbar and in. And it's so ironic, isn't it? The club that he's forever been linked with see Spurs sink into back-to-back defeats, as I mentioned, for a fifth time this season. Tell me, Marcus, when that goal went in, any hope or confidence we get back into that for you?
No, none at all. And I also thought it was a bit ironic because, as you say, Traore has been consistently linked with us. And we know the blistering pace he's got. There's always been the accusation that there is no end product. He actually delivered a brilliant cross about 10 or 15 minutes before the goal as well. And the finish, you know, you could argue we were a little bit unlucky. And I was surprised at the quality of Traore's finish. I don't associate him with that. So kind of when things are going against you, that happens. But you make your own luck in the game. And Wolves made their own luck. And from them, I carried on, you know, keeping an eye on watching it till the end. But I honestly... especially as I'd heard by then that Arsenal had come from 2-0 and you knew they were going to score in the last minute. It was just all culminating into a really depressing afternoon. So I actually had no expectation of us getting an equaliser after that went in.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree with that. And as I said, coming over to you, Pat, on this point, you know, Wolves, they were rewarded for freshening things up with proactive subs. Us, the complete opposite. And it is just so, as I said, ironic that Adama wants a Spurs target, as someone has politely put up there. I think it's 3 goals in the last 3 years. That's in combination for both Barcelona and Wolves combined. Of course, in Anthony Costa fashion stylistic way, he would be the one to score it, right?
Yeah, it's written in the stars. It was written, scripted, and like Marcus is saying, it was actually a really good finish. Like, I was fuming. I was like, you know what? That's a good finish. Like a half volley. Fraser Forster did everything he could do to keep that ball out. Our defenders were kind of walking, wasn't alert, and he just basically put it the only way he could to score the goal. And then he was celebrating like they'd won. It was awful. It was horrible. And then after that, fair play to them, even though I don't want to say it, they managed the game well. You know, they went down cheaply. They wasted time. They did everything that you should do to see the game out. And like I said earlier, they made Romero lose his head. And yeah, you just couldn't see us getting back into that game. And I don't know, it's just the same old thing over and over and over. It's like Burnley away last year, I think it was, Ben Mee, pretty much the same pattern of play, the same cycle. And it's just frustrating because, you know, we could have really put a grip, a stranglehold on fourth today. Newcastle playing Man City, we knew something had to give there. Man City did what they needed to do. Every time it's in our hands to really push on, we always do this. We always do this. And then
that's the mad thing, Pat, just to bring you back in here for a second. Newcastle defeat against City meant Spurs could have opened up a 7-point gap to fifth today.
Exactly.
Had they won it. How frustrating is that, Pat? It's so frustrating, right?
So frustrating, because it's like we do this all the time, and then, you know, we'll do what we do. Who knows? Hopefully we beat AC Milan. We'll win 1 or 2. We'll all think we're back, and then we'll lose 2 on the bounce. And then it's just the same horrible cycle. And I just think, top to bottom, this club needs gutting out and going again. New chairman, new players. Dare I say, you know, if Harry Kane wants to go this summer, as much as I really don't want to say, you know, I've always said we keep Kane and we build around him, but we're not going to do that. Sometimes just let the guy go. Let him actually have, you know, let him have basically some sort of career, because he's 30 this summer, and we just build again. You know, Sonny as well. Maybe it's time for him to move on, and we just bring in young, hungry, fresh talent. But the thing is, I can't trust this board anyway to do that. So I don't even know how I feel, really. I'm just in two minds, because do I trust these guys to go out and bring in top talent for us to go again? Do I trust them to really back the manager, bring in a manager and see his vision through? I don't. So I don't know. I don't even know how I feel anymore. I'm just, it's crazy.
Breaking, Pat. It's breaking us. I mean, Cracks, to come over to you. Someone's put it in the comments there with Adama Traore before we look ahead to AC Milan. I think a couple of goals in 3 years. They've both come against Spurs. And it's just absolutely tragic when you consider the fact that we couldn't score a single goal after using most of our attackers. And the player that we were linked with, that we run about his end product, has scored two against us in the last 3 years. Is that not Spurs all over?
Well, I mean, that Spurs thing's become a bit of a thing because it's become a bit of a thing. But we spoke about this before. It's that Baader-Meinhof effect, isn't it? We think it only happens to us when it happens. But I bet if you looked at throughout the season, even with Man City or Man U or Newcastle, Chelsea, you'd look at it, and 3 or 4 times in that season, there will be somebody like Traore that hasn't scored for 2 years and then pops up and gets one, or somebody scores against Man U, and the last time they scored, like, they haven't had a goal since they scored against Man U last time. But we don't notice that as much because that's happening to them. When it happens to us, we feel like the only club in the world that is happening to. So I don't know. Perhaps Adama Traore had seen some of Jason's comments about him and not wanting to come, and then going, "I'll show you what I can do." But do you know what? Adama Traore, you look at him and you think to yourself, he would actually improve us at the moment. We turned him down, but he looks like a player that would actually improve us. And he's not where we should be going, but where we currently are. Yeah, like him in the side with his energy, you know, I think more than anything, that's what if we could actually sign some culture and direction and energy, that would be the best signing for us. Not missing out on Traore, but yeah, it's you knew it was coming, didn't you? It is as Patrick said, it's Ben Mee at Burnley away again, isn't it? So. Which I also went to last year. We beat Man City, didn't we? Like up there, and then I got offered a ticket to go Burnley. Seemed to walk uphill both ways to the station in sideways rain after coming from home, and it was 30 degrees, and got done 1-0. And then we went away to Leeds the week after and won 4-0. Unfortunately, we didn't get the bounce this time. We beat Chelsea and I missed that. Went Sheffield, got beat like at Burnley. And I thought, right, we will beat Wolves 4-0 today for the symmetry of last year. But
no chance.
No chance. Dr. Tottenham will see you now. Surgery's open.
I tell you what, surgery is very much open. We might need open heart surgery come Wednesday. We are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners that are on audio. And we're joined by a plethora for our listeners on audio of Milan podcasters that very kindly giving up their time. We're hearing from the Milan Weekly podcast, we're hearing from Elaine from Milan Obsession, and we're also hearing from Stefan from Sempre Milan. Guys, we're going to get straight into it. We'll look to close off the show in these next 5. It does feel almost like a season-defining game now for Tottenham, where quite literally lots seems to fall on it. Marcus, we'll start with you. How big is the game on Wednesday? What are you anticipating? I want your prediction. Also, tell us a little bit more about the Tottenham Way podcast. That you're very obviously now you're hosting that mammoth of a show of a Tottenham podcast. Tell us a little bit about that, Marcus, if you can. How big this game is on Wednesday?
Yes, well, thanks for the plug. First of all, the Tottenham Way, and this is not set up in any way to go against the last word on Spurs, because this pod is unique and fantastic in dissecting the games. We try and look in more general terms, obviously at what's happened on the pitch, but also what's going on off it. And we'll have some guests. We had Gus Poyet on the last week ahead of the Chelsea game. It's myself, Dan Kilpatrick of the Evening Standard, and I've got the two Toms, Barkley and Allnut of the Sun and the Times, and various guests who come on, fans, etc., throughout the season. So we're trying to look between the lines at what it's all about. In terms of Wednesday, clearly it's a huge game. I expect the atmosphere to be fantastic because we're very good. We're like goldfish, us football fans. We'll forget very quickly what happened today. And if we start well, and I think we will start well, personally, I think we have to score early to have a chance, and I think we will. The thing that worries me, having seen the first leg, is that I think they're very decent on the break. And, we're not going to manufacture world-class defenders in the next 3 days. And that's my big, big concern. So I can see us starting really well. I could even see us going 2-0 up, but I'm pretty sure they're going to score. And that's, there's no away goals. So who knows? It could go to a penalty shootout actually on Wednesday. But I think it has the potential to be a rousing night, but I've got a nasty little feeling that we're going to get a kick in the teeth right at the end of it.
I can see that I'm getting a kick in the teeth quite literally for calling that a season-defining game. Many think that the season's been, defined now from that Wolves game. Come over to you, Pat, if I can. Pat, it is a massive game. Look, I know people say we don't turn up for massive games, so maybe we should just say it's a normal game for Tottenham. Maybe that will take the pressure and the heat off the boys. I know a lot of the Spurs boys, a lot of the Spurs staff do watch Last Word on Spurs. So, without putting too much pressure on them, Pat, is this for you now almost make or break when it comes to everything for Tottenham, the management, the players, just the direction where the club is heading? Or is that already really been sealed and this is just yet another game that we have to play and find out if we can get the result? And what do you make of it, Pat, for you, the game itself?
You know what? Because I'm feeling so emotional right now. For me, it's almost like it is. See, I get where you're coming from when you say season defining. I think it is in terms of it will set the mood and the tone for the rest of the season. If we manage to go through and knock out AC Milan, it's such a big scalp. Yes, they're not the AC Milan of yesteryear, but they're still a big name. They are, they're a glamour tie. When you qualify for Champions League football, these are the kind of moments you want. The second leg at home, under the lights, we're all going to be there cheering on the boys. And if we go through, especially after being 1-0 down, it is fantastic. And you will get a pep in your step and you'll feel everything will be great again at Tottenham. We'll feel amazing. We'll be buzzing. There'll be so much positivity coming through. But if we lose and we lose badly, oh my God, it is going to become so toxic, especially as it'll be Antonio Conte's first game back. That'll be 3 wins on the 3 losses on the bounce back to back. And if the performance is poor as well, then there's going to be questions asked to Sonny, Kane, these big moments, these big defining moments, because everyone always says they feel sorry for Harry Kane and, woe is me and Sonny as well. But if we're being real, if these guys don't deliver in another big game, then questions need to be asked of them as well, because they are part of the team. Kane shouldn't always get a hall pass. He shouldn't always get a free pass. When we're in these moments, he is also playing. Like today, Harry Kane was part of the team that lost. So it is I want to be positive. I always said that funny enough, I predicted that we would lose 1-0 a couple of weeks ago. And I said we'll beat them 3-1 or 3-0 at the stadium. I'm going to still stick to that. I still want to be positive. I know it doesn't feel like that right now because of obviously the manner of the losses and the teams that we're losing to. I mean, come on, if we're losing to Wolves and Sheffield United, what chance in hell do we have against AC Milan? But football doesn't work like that. And every game, ideally, is a clean slate and a chance to right our wrongs. I just hope, I'm like talking myself into some sort of, belief. I just hope the boys can just have some pride and play for the shirt and not make any silly mistakes and just play. At the end of the day, we work so hard to get into the Champions League. We fight tooth and nail to get there. So why not give it your all and we go through and then we see what happens from there? I don't want to see us play like, wimps. I don't want to see us, shirk out of 50-50 tackles. I want to see us play with energy for the full 90 minutes. I want to see us be brave. I want to see us, And then if we lose, there's ways to lose a game. And the last 2 losses have just been so pathetic. You just feel annoyed and aggrieved of, if you lose and you give it your all, fair play. Of course, everyone hates losing. But if we lose the way, in the manner which we did today or against, Sheffield, it's just going to be like, what's the point? And so even though we could still finish 4th next season, if this is what we're going to do when we get to these moments, then I agree with everyone that's saying, what is the point of top 4? Because when we get there, we don't do anything. So, that's how I feel right now, to be fair.
Pat, prediction, very quickly. We're going for
3-1 Tottenham.
Okay, interesting. Interesting you say 3 goals. I feel like at the moment, where will those 3 goals come from? But look, we do need some optimism. Cracks, they come over to you. We must just suggest, we obviously must say, Stellini did say Conte will be returning. He said, Antonio will be a massive boost for us from tomorrow, referring, I believe, him to Sunday and until the end of the season. He made that point. It's important that we have him back. I have to remember, Antonio is the same man that, despite just overseeing 1 win in February, that 4-1 defeat to Leicester, did manage to get himself nominated for the manager of the month. Stellini, of course, in the dugout for those wins over City, West Ham, Chelsea this month, as he did at that point maintain 100% win record. But you should know anything by Spurs. If you've got any kind of decent record, that goes out the window. Trophies or 100% record, they'll never last at a club like Tottenham. So, Cracks, is there a rallying cry for you on Wednesday? And how do you see that game going?
Well, I think what we need to do on Wednesday, Rick, is rest some players so that the next league game, we stand a chance of winning it to get into the competition again next season, and then rest players so that we can get into it again. And that's that just seems to be the logic at the moment. Oh, Rick, you can't nail jelly to the wall, can you? What Tottenham's going to turn up? Would you be surprised if we won 4-0 or lost 4-0? You just that's just Tottenham, isn't it? It's just like the acca killer, the accumulator killer, isn't it? You just can't. There's no rhyme or reason. I'm with Patrick. I just want to see us, despite negative Norris it being back in the dugout, you just go and have a go. Please, just go and have a go. And if we get beat, but we've had a go and played with a bit of freedom and tried to play with a bit of style and a bit of swagger, I want to see that back, Rick. I just want to see something akin to that and just feel like there's something there I can get behind, get on the edge of the seat and go just go. Last time you got off your seat watching Tottenham, it just doesn't happen anymore, does it? That is what I want. I just want to see us have a little go. As for a score, Rick, I don't know. 3-0 there.
3-0. And in such a resounding Spurs fashion about wanting to score lots of goals and play with glory and play fashionable, Spurs, of course, would bow out. It's funny, Kingle says there, we throw everything at qualifying for a competition we cannot win. You can't make it up. And again, I have to remind people, we did reach a final, and how bad that season was, Spurs did reach a final. Look, I must say, thank you so much to these wonderful guests tonight. I've had the wonderful Richard Cracknell on. Make sure you go and check out Cracks. He's got lots of Legends Nights coming up. The brilliant Marcus Buckland back on Last Word on Spurs. Obviously, of course, make sure you go and check out the Tottenham Way. Follow Marcus. He's on a lot of different Spurs podcasts as well. And he gives you a lot of his thoughts on Spurs all the time. We love having you back on, Marcus. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Cracks, thank you so much. Pat,
thank you.
Normally defending us on all different Spurs platforms. Pat, thank you. And we hope you continue to defend us as best as possible. And lastly, to our wonderful viewing and watching audience here, over 1,000 of you watching us live tonight on a Saturday night. Thank you so much for giving up your Saturday night as one of these magnificent guests from the great Richard Cracknell, from the superb Patrick Tyrant, from the brilliant Marcus Buckland. Guys, we've been the last word on Spurs. We're back with you after AC Milan, and I cannot predict what's to come. But all I do know is that we'll be there cheering the boys on. And as always, keep safe, keep well, and come on, you Spurs.